Hello and welcome to episode 26 of Reflecting the Way Radio, Freedom from Slavery to Debt. I'm your host, Evan. Let's get started. And just before we do, I would like to remind you that if you haven't already done so, please go check us out on Facebook and Twitter. We are Reflecting the Way on Facebook, and we are at Reflect the Way on Twitter. Please also, if you haven't done so, head on over to the homepage. Check us out there. There's lots of good content that's been uploaded recently. It's lots of which you won't want to miss for sure. And there's also a companion article to this episode linked in the description box below if you're listening to this on Blog Talk, or you can search Freedom from Slavery to Debt if you're listening on another podcatching service. So, freedom from slavery to debt. As Christians, it's commonly said that we are, quote-unquote, free in Christ. Unfortunately, especially in the West, many Christians voluntarily turn that free in Christ in and take on themselves a new kind of slavery that doesn't have bars or chains. And what I'm referring to here is debt. Now, there is a strong biblical principle that no man can serve two masters. Either he loves one and hates the other, or vice versa. Now, in the case of debt, especially bank debt, but personal debt as well, you are essentially signing an agreement that you are going to pay back something. And if you haven't seen our article series on how money works, I would highly encourage you check that out because there are some very nefarious mechanisms at work here. We won't get into that too much today. This is going to be a little bit less on the spiritual side, a little bit more on the pragmatic side, but check that out. You're signing your life away effectively. And the problem is that we can say we're free in Christ and we love Jesus first, but the fact of the matter is, the Bible, on top of saying you can only have one master, otherwise you'll hate one and love the other, the Bible also says that the borrower is servant to the lender. That means that if you owe somebody money, you are effectively their servant until that debt is resolved. Now, that is in stark contrast to the idea of being free in Christ. And okay, in a spiritual sense, maybe you are free in Christ. But on the flip side, when you have voluntarily taken debt onto yourself and willingly signed the paperwork to get yourself a credit card or a mortgage or a car loan or whatever it is, the fact of the matter is you have two masters. You have God and you have a financial institution because you owe that financial institution a debt. So you are servant to that lender. Like it or not, if that ruffles your feathers, it's simply the way it is. Now, anybody who has any kind of debt, and I would wager to say any adult listening to the sound of my voice here has some kind of debt, whether it's secured, unsecured, mortgage, credit card, car loan, personal loan, business loan, you name it. If you owe money, even if you don't give it conscious thought every day, that knowledge that you owe somebody something either hovers around the back of your mind, or it is a constant irritation to your psyche, knowing that you are tied in to doing a job that you don't necessarily want to do, but you have to do based on the fact that you have to pay your bills. And essentially, that all comes back to debt in one way or another. So how can you become free of debt? Well, unfortunately, sin has consequences, and I'm going to call debt sin because it is, and I wish I'd figured this out many years ago, but I didn't. So I'm not clean as a driven snow here by any means. I am doing everything in my power to become debt-free, and if you follow Reflecting the Way, you will find that there will be some more content along these lines in the coming weeks and months, as I think this is one of the major threats to Western, not just Christians, but people in general. One of the greatest threats to Western Christians and Western Christianity at large is debt. because people ignorantly, and I don't say that to be inflammatory, just in the truest sense of the word, ignorantly sign up for debt, not understanding what they're doing. And like I said, please go check out our article series on how money works, available at reflectingtheway.com for free. Check that out to see what I'm talking about when I talk about the nefarious mechanics of money. But the fact of the matter is, if you have debt, to do it the God-honoring way, you have to work your way out of that debt. Now, God will provide ways, if you are truly repentant, that you can get out of debt quicker. I can speak to that personally, and I will at a future time once I'm truly debt-free. But in the meantime, here are three very, very basic and very common sense, though underutilized, methods or strategies for getting yourself out of debt. Number one is most obvious, and I may in the future put together a bit of a template or a guideline on how to do this. But number one, the best thing you can do, and you can do it right now, is set yourself a monthly budget. And you don't have to be an accountant to do this. You just need to know what all of your regular monthly and annual expenses are. And I would also highly recommend that you designate some for savings and charity, but that's a different topic. And when you do this, don't leave anything out. I'm talking groceries, I'm talking phone bills, I'm talking hydro bills, water, municipal tax, which is often due, or county tax, I guess, depending where you are, is often due once a year. Some people already save for that every paycheck. Lots of people don't. Things like vehicle insurance. If you don't pay, now maybe this is different state to state and province to province, but if you have the option to prepay 12 months, do it. You will save yourself money over paying monthly, and it's a significant amount of money that you'll save. And the way you do this is with things like vehicle insurance and municipal or county tax. You calculate what you need to save every pay period in order to have that bill covered when it comes up in 12 months' time. And you set that money aside right off the top. You don't go to the store first. You get your paycheck and you take all those deductions off your paycheck. And I actually recommend taking that money out of the bank, putting it in cash at home in a designated envelope with the name of the expense written on it, vehicle insurance, property tax, whatever, homeowner's insurance. So you have a set of envelopes, preferably in a safe, something fireproof, something that's not going to get stolen easily. You set that aside, and you do that every pay period, and the next time one of those major expenses comes up, you have the money in hand. And a side benefit of that is if you have it at home, you also have extra cash on hand if something unfortunate were to happen. Number two, if you use a credit card, which I highly do not recommend, if you use a credit card, treat it like a debit card. If you need it for shopping online, use it, get the charge on the card, and the day it shows up, you pay it off immediately. Don't even wait. If you do this every time, you know how much money you have, you don't have any outstanding debt, and you won't be paying interest. Now, if you're paying down a credit card, that's a different story, and I'll cover that a different time. But assuming you don't have credit card debt now, treat your credit card like a debit card if you must use it. And finally, for those of us that have a mortgage, which is probably a fair few, this is a big one, because mortgage, literally death agreement, you sign your life away. Literally, you sign your life away to the bank when you get a mortgage. And you are often locked in for 20, 25 years, maybe more, depends, maybe less. But if you have an average sort of mortgage, you're probably looking at a 20-year amortization when you get it. And most people will just make the payment that the bank sets up for them and figure, well, we can't pay this down any quicker anyway. But a mortgage is one of the biggest anchors around your ankle that you'll ever see in your life. And this is a personal peeve of mine, and this is the one piece of debt that I have to my name, and let me tell you right now, I hate it. It's going away very soon, And I would highly encourage you listening tonight, if you have a mortgage, talk to your bank. Ask them what kind of options are available for paying your mortgage down quicker. I will tell you that less than 2 years ago, my wife and I had a remaining amortization on our mortgage of 22 years. As I sit here this evening, less than 2 years later, our amortization has been reduced to 7 months remaining. Gasp, right? Okay. We did things a little extreme, but there's no reason that you can't pay your house down quicker than you think. So go to your bank, talk to them about double payments, talk to them about increased payments, talk to them about flexible mortgage rates. You have to figure out what works for you, but trim the fat from your budget, find out where you can save, and you may be surprised if you sit down and do the numbers, just how quickly you could own your home debt-free. I'm telling you right now, I'm comfortably under 30, and I will be mortgage-free long before I hit the big 3-0. And I don't have an extravagant job, neither does my wife. We just are tight with our budget. We know what we want, and God told us one day, you're going to pay your house off, and we said, aye, aye, Captain, and we are now within throwing distance of that. And everybody's situation is a little bit different, but you can certainly make massive improvements on how much you're paying your mortgage down if all you're doing right now is making the bank's payment. So those are the three things I would highly encourage you. I'm not giving you a whole ton here this episode to chew on all at once. Those are the three things I would highly recommend that you go investigate at the very least, is set yourself a budget, find out what all of your weekly, monthly, and yearly expenses are, set that money aside. Do not use a credit card. If you do use a credit card, treat it like a debit card, and talk to your financial institution to see if you can do anything to pay your mortgage off quicker. And with that, I would remind you to go check out reflectingtheway.com. Find us on Facebook and Twitter. We are at Reflect the Way on Twitter and Reflecting the Way on Facebook. Check us out at www.reflectingtheway.com. And with that, I will leave you. Blessings.